It was a quiet evening in the city, the streets dimly lit by flickering neon signs and the occasional passing car. 17-year-old Jake walked home alone, his hoodie pulled up against the cool night air. He was an ordinary teenager by appearance, lean, unassuming, just another kid heading home. But what no one could see was the years of training behind his calm demeanor. As he turned down a shadowy alley, the distant rumble of motorcycle engines grew louder. Within moments, a group of bikers rolled in, their leather jackets gleaming under the streetlights. They slowed down, surrounding him like a pack of wolves eyeing easy prey. Jake's heart pounded, but his expression remained steady. He had seen trouble before, but this time trouble had no idea what it was up against. Would you like me to continue or adjust the encounter begins? Jake kept walking, his footsteps steady despite the unease creeping in. The bikers had cut off his path, their motorcycles idling with a low growl. Their leader, a burly man with a scar running down his cheek, stepped forward with a smirk. "Where you headed, kid?" he asked, his tone laced with mockery. Jake glanced around. There were 5 of them, all older, bigger, and confident in their numbers. He stayed silent, his instincts already analyzing the situation. The alley was narrow, with a brick wall behind him and the open street too far ahead. Escape wasn't an option, at least not without a fight. Another biker chuckled, stepping closer. "You look nervous? Got something for us? Maybe that phone?" Jake took a slow breath. If they wanted a victim, they had picked the wrong person. "Would you like me to?" Threat escalates. The leader took a step closer, towering over Jake with an air of dominance. His leather jacket creaked as he folded his arms, a smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. "I asked you a question, kid," he said, his voice low and menacing. "Hand over the phone, and maybe we let you walk away." One of the other bikers, a wiry man with a tattooed arm, cracked his knuckles. "Or maybe we just take it," he sneered. Jake's fingers twitched at his sides, but he didn't move. He knew that showing fear would only make them bolder. Instead, he met the leader's gaze, his expression unreadable. The leader scoffed. "Look at this kid. He thinks he's tough." Then, without warning, he reached out to shove Jake backward. But instead of stumbling, Jake barely shifted. His stance was solid, controlled. The bikers weren't expecting that. One of them frowned. "What the?" Jake's eyes remained locked on them, his muscles tensed, ready. He had given them a chance to back off. They hadn't taken it. "Would you like?" Teen assesses the situation. Jake's mind worked quickly, his training kicking in as he analyzed his opponents. 5 bikers, strong but slow. Their stance was sloppy, built on intimidation rather than skill. The alley was narrow, limiting their movements but giving Jake an advantage. He could control the space and keep them from surrounding him completely. He shifted his weight subtly, his feet positioning for balance. His hands, relaxed but ready, hung loosely at his sides. Years of martial arts training had taught him patience. Never strike first, but always be prepared to counter. The leader frowned, sensing something off. "What's with this kid?" he muttered to his crew. The tattooed biker, still smirking, took another step forward. "Come on, man. He's just standing there. Let's teach him a lesson." Jake took a slow breath. He had hoped to avoid a fight, but it was clear now they weren't going to walk away. And if they made a move, he'd be ready. "Would you like to continue into the action scene?" The roar of motorcycle engines echoed through the alley as the bikers hurriedly mounted their bikes. One by one, they sped off into the night, their pride wounded more than their bodies. The leader, still seething, cast one last glare at Jake before revving his engine and disappearing into the darkness. Jake stood still, his breath slowing as the adrenaline faded. His hands, steady throughout the fight, finally relaxed. The alley was quiet now, the only sound the distant hum of the city. A nearby shopkeeper, who had watched from behind a half-closed metal shutter, cautiously stepped out. "Kid, you okay?" he asked, eyes wide with disbelief. Jake nodded, adjusting his hoodie. "Yeah, I'm good." He glanced around, ensuring the threat was truly gone before walking toward the street. No celebration, no boasting, just quiet confidence. He had defended himself, and that was enough. "Would you like to move into the final conclusion?" As Jake walked away from the alley, the events of the night played back in his mind. He had been outnumbered, but not outmatched. His training had prepared him for moments like this, not to seek out fights, but to end them when necessary. The encounter left him with a realization. Strength wasn't just about knowing how to fight, it was about knowing when to stand your ground and when to walk away. He had given the bikers a chance to back off. They had chosen violence, and he had simply responded. A streetlight flickered as he stepped onto the main road. The city moved on as if nothing had happened, unaware of the battle that had just taken place in the shadows. But Jake knew, and so did the bikers. As he disappeared into the night, he had no doubt the next time they thought about picking on someone, they would think twice. The end. Would you like to add? As Jake continued walking, a pair of sharp eyes watched from the darkness. Leaning against a lamppost, a man in a long coat had seen everything. His expression was unreadable, but there was a hint of approval in his gaze. He pulled out a phone and dialed a number. "Yeah, I just saw something interesting," he said, his voice low. "The kid's got skill, real skill." A pause. "No, he doesn't know we're watching, but he will soon." The man smirked, then stepped back into the shadows. Unaware of the attention he had drawn, Jake disappeared into the city, thinking the night was over. He had no idea. It was only the beginning. Would you like to continue with a sequel or a new twist? Morning, Jake went about his usual routine, grabbing his backpack, heading to school, acting like nothing had happened. But as he reached into his locker, a small black envelope slipped out and landed at his feet. Frowning, he picked it up. No name, no return address, just a sleek design with a single silver emblem on the front. He carefully opened it and pulled out a crisp card. "Impressive skills. We should talk. Midnight, Warehouse 17. Jake's pulse quickened. Someone had seen the fight. Someone who knew what he could do. He glanced around the hallway, but no one seemed to be watching him. Whoever had left this message was careful. Was this a trap, a challenge, or an opportunity? Jake exhaled, slipping the card into his pocket. Whatever this was, he had to find out. Tonight, the real fight might begin. Jake's mind raced. Who had left the note? What did they want? Was this a setup or something bigger? As the clock neared midnight, he stood outside Warehouse 17, a rundown building on the outskirts of town. The street was eerily quiet, lit only by a flickering street lamp. His instincts told him to be cautious, but his curiosity wouldn't let him walk away. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. The vast, dimly lit space was empty at first. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. It was the man from the alley. He smirked. "Glad you showed up, kid. You're exactly what we've been looking for." Jake tensed. "Who are you?" The man chuckled. "Someone who knows talent when he sees it. And you just stepped into a much bigger fight." Jake's fists clenched. He had a feeling his life was about to change forever. A bigger game begins. Jake's eyes darted around the warehouse, scanning for exits, weapons, anything useful. His instincts told him this was no ordinary meeting. The man in the long coat took a step closer, his smirk never fading. "Relax, kid. If I wanted trouble, I'd have brought more than a note." Jake didn't relax. "Who are you? What do you want?" The man folded his arms. "Name's Cade. Let's just say I work with people who appreciate talent." His gaze sharpened. "And last night, you showed you've got plenty of it." Jake stayed silent, waiting. Cade continued. "You've got skills, but you're raw. No real strategy, no backup. You took down those bikers alone, but what if there were 10, 20? You're good, but you could be better." Jake's jaw tightened. He didn't like being analyzed like this. "And what? You're offering to train me?" Cade chuckled. "Not just train. Recruit." Jake narrowed his eyes. "For what?" Cade's smirk widened. "For something much bigger than street fights." He tossed another black envelope onto a crate beside him. "Think about it," Cade said, turning to leave. "You want answers? You want real power? Be at that address tomorrow night? Or don't. Your call." As Cade disappeared into the shadows, Jake stared at the envelope. His fingers itched to open it, but deep down, he already knew his life was never going to be the same again. Would you like to continue and explore what's